to Sports Talk Live. This is with Alex, Sports Talk with Alex and Felix. Uh, I'm his dad. That's my son. And we're going to talk about this weekend's performance of these teams that played in the playoffs. So, we gave our picks on Saturday was it Saturday? No,
No,
Friday.
Friday.
And so if you guys tuned in, you guys kind of know how that weekend went. So, but we're going to talk about the performances of these quarterbacks and each team. And so, I was very impressed with the Texans did when they came in to play the Chiefs. I expected the Chiefs to be ready, and that I thought they were just going to blow up on them, maybe be a blowout. But the Texans came there; they played a sound game. There were some bad penalties. I thought C.J. Strauss he did whatever was asked of him by his coaching and his staff. Their defense played really well, but they had some poor calls that didn't go their way, as usual when teams play the Chiefs. And I was just overall impressed with what they brought to the table going into Arrowhead, into Kansas City, and they were ready to play. They would definitely, I'm going to say, look, and give them another year and maybe a couple of pieces on the chessboard. And you know what? We may be seeing a different type of AFC, not just AFC South, but you know what? I think Mahomes is going to be challenged a lot more. There's a lot more competition coming into the AFC side of the board there. But look, um, we're going to see the young quarterback did well. I was impressed. His team did well.
Okay, let's talk about Mahomes. It didn't go be not a job to talk about Mahomes. Okay, and coming out about it hard. It's difficult. I think that too bad to come home to put against Marco in week 18.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up. I agree with you. These I kind of I know the NFL is going to make some changes, and that's something else we want to talk to you fans about. The upcoming they want to add another week and maybe take away another week of preseason. But I would like to see another add-on into the playoffs and no bye week for anybody. I think football would be better if, and I don't mean during the regular season. I'm talking about in the playoffs now. Obviously, during the regular season, the teams need a break. They have to have a bye. But when you get in playoffs, I think they should just play no time off because as we see as the NFL has made changes over the years, there used to be two bye weeks, right? There used to be the 1 and 2 seeds used to get
They,
bye weeks, but they did away with it. So now I think they should just do away with it. And we'll get into that when we talk about the other number one seed, Detroit Lions and the Commanders game as well. But I'm sorry, I know I cut you off. So go ahead about the 2 weeks off.
okay, move and the captain sheet off the defense had about to they're not playing good at the coming into uh the league up put up uh football. Uh more play a little bit off uh with issue. I know that people
Well, he played well. I mean, he was very much open.
well
He had well over 100 plus yards. And the Mahomes used him a lot to really keep them in that game, and he was definitely prepared and ready, even though the rest of the team looked like they were. So they just wasn't there. And I have to say, they got lucky because if they were playing one of the other teams that was ranked higher, they might have went home. They
Okay, okay, okay. Um, yeah, the, yeah. Okay. Um. Right. Uh, okay. Now, now, quick. the quick, the quick. That was that what happened is is the peekaboo that this week a lot week. They might go home. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Or even if the Ravens had if they had the
Mm-hmm.
Ravens, I think they would have definitely went home. They definitely were caught in a situation where it took them a while. It took them 3 quarters to finally snap out of the rust and be prepared. So I think the league needs to look at that about these guys taking off so much time. They got blown out horribly by the Broncos at the last week because they just didn't play, and that was just awful. And so, look, the league got strict rules about uniforms. They got these guys they stay on the field until the clock says 000.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think they should have to play. Um, it's just part of the game, and if because other teams that didn't play so well during the regular season they have to play through, right? And if they play through and they win and they get to the Super Bowl, they didn't have no time off. Could you imagine how exhausted those guys would be? So it's not fair. So I believe you get in the playoffs to just be like college and you play. You made it there, you earned it. You're the number one seed. Now you play the lowest seed that comes in, and instead of having that week off, you now add another team, another two teams, right? One on the AFC side, one on the NFC side, and you add another week of playoffs, which I think fans would enjoy, because
Yeah,
look,
more
you
football.
had it would be definitely more football. You had teams like Cincinnati
Yeah.
that turned it around at the very end. They didn't get in. Imagine what would happen if they got in. Or
Or
you got the Falcons,
yeah.
or so there's room left on the table to give us more football. So I hope Roger Goodell takes a look at that.
Okay.
If
That.
you didn't see the score of that game was 23-14. It doesn't look like a high scoring game, but I could tell you the intensity that was in that stadium and the way the game went down. It was a slugfest.
Okay. That.
Um,
Move on to the
to the
game that
second game of that
Detroit
day,
and
Detroit.
what?
Yes, the Commanders. I was very impressed with the young man, Daniels, the young quarterback, the rookie. I was very disappointed in Golf and the Lions, but I could tell you exactly they were definitely caught sleeping for having that week off. What a difference that made for them. Golf through interception after interception. He looked kind of the way he did during the Minnesota game. And remember what I told you when we watched Minnesota play them that last week, how him and Donald they really looked like they had too much pressure on them to get that number one spot. And I told you if they went against your team, I said it again last week, if they went against the Eagles, they would have been done because they didn't handle the pressure really well. So watching him play in Detroit on Saturday against the Commanders. He just his timing was slightly off. Some of those interceptions would have been absolute touchdowns if he had gotten rid of the ball just a slight bit earlier. And one of the I think it was like the second or third one he threw, receiver was wide open in the end zone. If he had just let the ball go, by the time the receiver made his cut, the ball would have been right there. He would have walked right into the end zone. But because he hesitated, that slight delay, the defender undercut the receiver, clean interception. And so he had a pick six. It just this was 2 weeks back to back of him not playing well. I mean, we've seen the mistakes also when he played against Minnesota. So, uh, and then you got to ask yourself, he's been to the Super Bowl. Um, he had an outstanding season this year. His stats are off the charts. He was in that debate for who's MVP. So I'm gonna uh, turn it over to you. Obviously, we know what the score was, 45-31, Commanders. But I know you've been wanting to talk about Daniels, the rookie quarterback of the Commanders.
What a what what a game the shooting of the put up he is having a promoter put up team birth at a hit the history if he could go all the way to the Super Bowl. Uh,
Yeah, he has a chance to make history. That's correct. He'll be the first rookie to take his team to a Super Bowl. And that's a very possibility, Commanders, Chiefs, if the Chiefs are able to get past let's say the Bills, because now we know what the stage
yeah,
is set between the teams. Now I really was disappointed that the Lions did not win this game, not because just their Cinderella story of performing the way they did, but I really wanted to see that matchup between the Eagles and Detroit Lions to see who was truly the number one team in the NFC and in the NFL. And so we didn't get to see that, but we did get to see these games on Sunday, which takes us to Sunday, and you know, uh, the Eagles and Rams game. Now there was awful weather. If you guys didn't see the game, awful weather here on the East Coast. It was snowing, rainy, it was slippery, and that's a different style of football. Now I listened to a lot of analysts that forgot that the elements make a difference in games. 100%. It changes the whole dynamics of a game. You could be the best of the best of the best, but if you can't get traction and move your feet or plant your feet or make cuts or do all the things you need to do, guess what? You ain't number one anymore. You're just ordinary, just like everybody else. And so, um, those two games yesterday were absolutely amazing. Uh, the Rams came to play, that's for sure. But the Eagles showed that they were definitely the best team yesterday. The performance of Barkley was off the charts. This young man has literally, in one single season, just became a legend for the Eagles and their organization. Um, I can only imagine that Giant fans are literally their stomach. I mean, it must have been torn in knots just watching him play. There's no way they did not watch the games yesterday. I'm pretty sure the Giants owner watched the game, and it has to be kicking him um, to know. And just to bring back that point, the Giants had a chance last year to actually draft Daniels, and they passed. And if anyone watched the Hard Knocks, then when the GM for the Giants asked, the first name that came out was Daniel. If he was available, grab him. And they went and they picked Malik, and not that Malik wasn't a good benefit or add-on for the Giants, but they had to know they were going to need a quarterback. And this kind of talent is so rare. And now we see it. Look, this young man straight to the playoffs, immediately, right to the playoffs, first year in, um, and maybe might be going to a Super Bowl. And just imagine if the Giants just made better choices, they could have had that. So as fans, they got to be like fired up that this man, he just He dropped the ball himself. He fumbled. He didn't pick this quarterback in the draft when he had a chance to get them. He let their best prize possession go to a direct competitor, and now they're on their way possibly to a Super Bowl.
Okay, let's talk about the quarterback method. This could be that game in that to be good.
Wait, are we sure that he might be retiring? I mean, look, I think he thinks he left something on the table there. I mean, he got that far. They turned their season around towards the end. Look, they had a schedule with the Eagles on it, and look, nobody could have been as prepared for Barkley and Hurts. I mean, Hurts right out of the gate on that game ran for that touchdown. It was 70 yards he ran for as a quarterback and scored. And so then right behind that, when they get the ball back, they get another possession. Then it was Barkley's turn. Like, how do you stop that? And so, look, I, I just think, look, if the Eagles go to the Super Bowl, and whether it's the Bills or the Chiefs that go to the Super Bowl, they're going to have their hands full to try to shut this team down and that offense. There is no if buts about it that these guys can light up a scoreboard really quick if they had to. And I really almost felt like they were holding back against the Rams just because of the weather. And not to please Ram fans, do not take that personal. But I'm just saying that look, if it wasn't for the weather, I think Barkley would have ran for another 300 yards against you guys. I know it was like 255, but then you add his receiving yards on top of it. The man had well over 300 yards against you guys during the regular season. Oh my God. If it wasn't for that bad weather, that would have been a very ugly game. It would have probably been one of the most lopsided games in the playoffs for this season if it wasn't for the snow and the rain. No ifs buts about it. Stafford, um, they turned the ball over, and when I was waiting for that, I was just waiting. I say, whoever turns the ball over is going to win this game. And wow, right there, right there. As soon as it happened, I knew it. And so, congratulations to your Eagles. Uh, Jalen Hurts, look, he did what he had to do to win. He didn't have a fancy game, but he came out swinging. That's for sure.
Okay, let's move on to that game. Yesterday, uh, we have we have could be American game of the year. It's up there, Baltimore and the Bills. That Bill team come and hopefully, Baltimore came and had a performance for both teams. Go back and forth. But again, whoever took the ball over, they convicted and Baltimore took the ball over a couple times. This is like the Bill took the ball over a couple times, but because this is bad, this a play at Baltimore goes to point and it look good. Cause I will take the Bill. Uh, the Bill that week. What we can't eat. Um, yeah. You want to talk about the Bill, quarterback?
Well, yeah. Well, first let's talk about Lamar's performance. Now we knew what was at risk for this game. This game was the last game of the weekend, right? And this was going to be the major matchup. Now both these quarterbacks have had some issues once they got into the playoffs. Their regular season play has been off the charts, and this is another season where Lamar might actually be MVP. Now this morning the press was basically roasting him, which was expected if he was to lose this game. If he won, it was already expected because everyone expected them to beat Buffalo. Even though Josh Allen was there, Buffalo doesn't have a whole bunch of fancy bells and whistles. They didn't do as much signing. as the Ravens did to bring in people like Henry and everything to make a difference and get them over the hump, right? Which is basically Mahomes. And both these teams have had problems facing the Chiefs and getting it done, right? The divisional round, when we look at it, I think Lamar is 3-5 in the divisional round. Uh, as far as the playoffs, and then Josh Allen is not that impressed either. This is only his second time getting to the AFC Championship game, and again, it's against the Chiefs once again. Uh, but the way the press really jumped on Lamar today, I thought it was overkill in the sense that look, they came there to play and they did play. He had some boo boos, but again, like I said earlier, the press themselves should be angry with themselves because they left out the factor of Mother Nature. They just looked at the squad and what the Ravens look like on paper as far as stats, Harbaugh's record, and everything else, and assumed they were just going to go to Buffalo and steamroll through them. So did fans. I seen so many tears and people carrying on of them losing this game, but nobody took a moment to just think that there could be a possibility that the Bills could send them home. They were going to go play in the Bill Stadium. It's right off the Great Lakes. You're talking about 14-degree temperatures. Plus, it was raining slash snowing up there. Uh, it was just really ugly weather, just like it was for Philadelphia and the Rams. And Josh Allen, he got to go to the next round, but there was something different about his season this year. And we're going to find out this coming weekend when he goes against Mahomes because obviously they were the only true team that beat them. Not take nothing away from Denver. You guys beat them, but you beat all of the backups. The only team that actually beat them and went straight up against Mahomes this season and beat them was the Buffalo Bills. And that tells me that these guys 100% have a different mindset. And that mindset might be the extra thing that they needed to get past this. And I think Josh is ready to go to the next step. I know Mahomes want a three-peat and that trophy, and there's a lot of people on that bandwagon. They want that so badly for them so they can make history. But Josh Allen might be basically standing in their way. Now they're going to Arrowhead. Um, I'm glad Josh Allen got this monkey off his back. He got one win against another elite quarterback in the league. Both these guys came out in the same draft. There's a lot there. And they both have problems with Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid over there. We're going to see come this coming weekend. And congratulations to the Buffalo Bills for getting it done and their coaching staff for being focused. They knew the challenge and what was ahead, and they did a fantastic job there of controlling the clock, the ball, um, and basically getting turnovers. That defense got those turnovers when it was needed. And I know people are roasting the tight end, but if you look at what he contributed all season long, you can't roast like really roast this man because he dropped that ball again, slippery wet ball. And if half of us was on that field and in that same position, we probably would have dropped that ball. We probably would have never even made the catch. And I don't think it's fair that he's being looked at like, oh, he cost him the game. At the end of the day, that would have only tied the game. It would not have won them the game. They still would have had to get an onside kick, which they didn't get. And at the end of the day, that would have only gave Buffalo a chance to get down and get a field goal and end the game. So it was still
Oh,
like a minute
oh,
and
oh,
a
oh, go
minute and
ahead.
like 50 something seconds left.
I'll go ahead overtime. Go ahead overtime.
Well, that's a possibility, but the Bills still would have had the last possession. They had to kick an onside kick and get the ball
Yeah,
back because if they didn't, and the Bills, if they didn't do an onside kick, and they just kicked the ball back to the Bills. The Bills still had the last possession with well over a minute plus time on the clock. Again, I don't see no analysts, no Stephen A. Smith, none of those guys realizing what was on the line there. There still would have been one more possession by the Bills, and they still would have had a chance to put an end to this game. The kicker did good. It wasn't like he missed kicks or anything like that. The man played well. So the chances are, the way they were moving that ball, they probably would have got down in field goal range. Look, we seen Josh Allen go toe to toe with Mahomes, and they both like thought they won a game within seconds, right? Josh Allen in regulation got down, scored with almost no time on the clock, and then Mahomes get down there in 13 seconds and tie the game, and they go to overtime. Like that's just an insane gameplay. So at the end of the day, with a minute plus something on the clock, there was a good chance he was going to get down there and they would have either scored or kicked a field goal, and it still would have ended, even if the band made the catch and tied the game. They still would have needed to get that ball back one more time to try to win it or get a turnover. So, um, your thoughts?
Here, here, they feel the boat is where the boat is hard to catch. If that will, if that way, because it up the real calm. The boat, the boat got water, that what air, water. Okay, so we got air outside the boat. There 50 degree really above uh 14 degree. The boat is hard to catch. The boat is hard to kick.
Yeah. I mean, look, those temperatures change the way the ball feels. And I get it. And that's why like Stephen A. Smith and them was talking about, oh, you brought in Derrick Henry, you should have gave it to him and should have ran the football. But even with him running the football, it wasn't easy. The Bills defense, they were there to play. And that's where I just feel like it was a level of disrespect of one, not respecting Mother Nature, and then two, not respecting the Bills for what they brought to the table and played all season. They were the number two seed the entire season. At one point, they had a chance. They needed somebody else to step up in the AFC to defeat the Chiefs, which would have gave them a chance to have the number one seed. But you know what? That didn't happen. Um, they lost a couple more other games. They still stayed the number two seed. So at the end of the day, they played hard this entire season, and I think the goal is to get past the Chiefs. They did it during the regular season. It's not the first time they beat the Chiefs during the regular season. They got to beat them in the playoffs, which is where they've always fallen short. And so we're going to see if Josh Allen can get past his playoff ghost that keeps haunting him, and that is getting past the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Mahomes, and getting to the next round. As far as the Eagles, they're going up against the Commanders. And oh boy, this is a rematch. This is now the third time these two teams are playing each other. Obviously, you guys jumped on them the first matchup. It was a very lopsided game, and believe it or not, second game started off that way, but they stayed in there, and eventually they got themselves back, and they came back and won that game. I don't know what to expect this time around between the two. I think the Eagles have a good chance of getting to the Super Bowl. Just you guys got the number one defense. Your special teams played well. I mean, your offense played well. You guys didn't turn the ball over. You guys are quite patient, and so we're gonna have to see if the Commanders' defense is up to the task of trying to shut down Barkley and Hurts. That's a deadly combination between those two, and we have to see because remember, Hurts got injured.
Yeah.
If he wasn't injured, that game probably would not have gone. Washington may not even made the playoffs. They would have been eliminated, and maybe Atlanta or somebody else would have gotten that slot. And so, people forget that, but we're gonna see what happens uh, this coming weekend. I can't
Okay.
believe this season is almost over. Can you believe it? It's almost over. We're
Yeah,
about to
I
find out
can.
who's going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I can. But it's $1 I put the Super Bowl in the job and then buy football by we on the NFL 25 million will be on the way after the Super Bowl. So yeah, I can't believe it, but I also can't believe it almost over.
And it's almost over. But you know what? I was watching yesterday Michigan State versus Illinois college basketball. What an entertaining game. Came down to the wire between those two universities. And we are going into the whole basketball season, March Madness. That's happening. We got baseball's going to be going on, starting up soon. They should be starting their spring in about a month. Warm ups and getting things going, and then of course you got hockey. So there's other sports that's gonna be going on, folks, and so it's just gonna be sad to see football going away. Now I know the XFL is supposed to be coming out so that we can still get some kind of football going, but the everyone obviously is going to be, I guess, anxious to see what the 2025 season is going to bring for the NFL. I hope Roger Goodell, if you're listening to this, yo, make these changes and get on these refs. You got to fix this. We've been saying this how many seasons now, Alex? How many seasons we've been talking about
It,
this bad officiating?
yeah,
And it's been
it,
like
it,
2, 3 seasons now. And so I agree. Look, I was watching Gruden, and Gruden was talking about how, you know what, coaches get fired, right, for losing. Players get released or waived or traded or become free agents and move on because teams aren't winning, right? And I think that should also apply to the officials. You know, these officials, if you don't know, they're not pros in a sense. These are people who have everyday jobs just like the rest of us, and then they're part timers for the NFL. So, which means when they have spare time, that's what they do. These people are accountants, lawyers, and anything else, and they get to go and officiate an NFL game, a billion-dollar organization with millionaire players. I mean, it's just the amount of money that's poured in there, and you have just ordinary people being the officials there, and they don't get it right. So I think what Gruden suggested is that when these guys make bad calls, that the entire staff get a fine or held accountable. And this way, when the call is made, when they get together, they can make a sound decision because they ain't gonna want nobody in their pocket. So at the end of the day, if they know there's a risk that they could be held accountable, um, I think we would get better officiating and better decision making from the officials. I don't think we would see uh, some of the stuff that's been happening in the NFL. I just think it's been poor. I think Gruden is right on that. I think that's something that Roger Goodell and all the owners they need to take a look at this. And if you're gonna just have the average Joe officiating a game that is got millions of dollars involved, you got sponsorship, right? And what's the sporting game apps that they use now? What is it?
exactly.
FanDuel and all these others, right? There's money all over the place. And you got these people who come in here and they make these bad decisions, and it sends sends teams home. They get sent home. They lose games due to bad calls. It's not fair. It's not
Okay.
fair.
The the what the bonus coverage up L. Hey, we got one more week of two the football. The who do you think would go? Is that you get the comment at uh, for me and him? We got we you have to wait for our pick. Real.
Okay. So you don't want to pick today? You want to wait?
No, it's too early to pick because you have you have injury report. You have
Yes, I know. Today's only Monday.
the Monday the injury report. The book never has something. So we make a talking about what did we bring to the table for the NFL. This is a book we of the loud game. The clock is two. The equal what computer can't wait for the begin.
Yeah, it's just a few more days away, folks. And boy, I tell you, I am so excited that at least I got one wish
Yeah,
out
it
of
got
this,
one.
which is to at least get to see Josh Allen versus Mahomes. Even though I did pick the Ravens, by the way, if you watch our previous video, I picked the Ravens, and
The,
Alex actually picked the Bills. And
the,
so,
it got be round four of it got be round four to the mom and the bill it got put off putting for a Super Bowl go to the Super Bowl begin next
well,
week.
look, yeah, it's round four between these two teams, but I gotta tell you, I enjoy every minute of the games, regardless of who wins, because they put on a show, and every time they play, whether it's regular season or in the playoffs, these teams, it's always down to the wire, and it's never a lopsided or a crazy game. It's always down to the wire, and I mean they ball 100%. So I am one like cuckoo for cuckoo puffs, cocoa puffs, basically for this game. This is going to be an exciting game. I'm going to have all my snacks ready. Oh man, I can't wait. I'm excited to see this game. Um, Not that I'm not excited to see the Commanders versus the Eagles. That's going to be a good game too. But
Oh,
uh,
one more thing. Um, the game that is the bill and can't get that or the car the the you a lot it will be a 3 o'clock but can't wait to what
yes, yeah, the Eagles and Commanders play first, and then the action pack arena starts
yeah
later in the day. Oh man, it's so juicy. Can't wait. Super excited. Um, and so
the
we're gonna
week
leave it there, folks, and we'll do our picks later this week on who we think is gonna go to the Super Bowl. I know we picked a couple of times throughout this season, like everybody else, but this is gonna be fun to
the
see.
the pick the pick
So yeah, this
yeah
is the real deal, the real deal. And
well
now
and
we know who's gonna. Now we know who's in the playoffs and who's doing what. We get to see it right now, and so yeah,
we
excited.
will all with her have a good day
Yes,
have a good week and we'll see you we we for the AFC and the AFC championship game.
yes, absolutely. All right, folks.